We've come to that one game, the value of Al Jefferson, growth on display. Big, big, big things are coming. And the Twitter response I wish I'd sent. All coming up on tip off. Boom, boom, boom. What an awesome state we live in. Boom, 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 boom. Basketball. Boom, 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 boom. Golfing. Boom, 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 boom. Skiing. Boom, 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 boom. Biking. All in the same weekend. How are you? It's tip off. Nice to see you this morning. How's everything going? So the essence of my existence is Sunday. What a great weekend, by the way. I hope everyone enjoyed the weather. Today's supposed to be a scorcher. But yeah, I had one of those cool Utah weekends that you you live in Salt Lake and you live in a different place than the rest of the country that you just can't do anywhere else. Where Saturday I golfed with my daughter and then helped coach at her little league game, and Sunday skied with my son at Snowbird, and then biked the weekend and during the weekend also. So um, you just can't do that anywhere else. But Sunday I had this great Twitter experience that led me with a million things I wanted to send, none of which I did. But I'll just share them all with you somehow, as though that then I don't get in trouble for. So a guy sent me a tweet that wanted to know whether the Jazz recognized Jerry Sloan on Saturday. Sloan was in the building for the first time, and the and I didn't get it. I was doing stuff. It was Sunday. I was with my family, and about it seems to be about an hour and 20 minutes later, in capital letters, are you ever going to respond to my tweet? So the responses, potential responses here, were really fun to play around with. First of all, the one I really wanted to do was just no, because it actually answered both questions to some extent, which was no, they didn't ever recognize Jerry Sloan. And then if I just put no, totally screw him up, as though for him being, in my opinion, a jerk, um, then he wouldn't actually know what the no was a response to. Maybe the no was a response to no, I'm never returning your tweet, but I would have just done that. Then there were numerous others that came to mind, but I really thought just a simple no would have been a nice response. Uh, in regards to that, I try to direct message back as many people as I can, but I could probably spend an hour a day doing that, and I'm not sure that that's always the best use of an hour. If you hit me at the right time, at the right moment, I read every single one of them. Sometimes, I apologize. Sometimes it's got to go away. I mean, some of them aren't always pleasant, but uh, or you just can't. We all get obsessed with our Twitter timeline. So I generally try to read them to interact, but um, you know. Anyway, here we are. One game tomorrow night, 8:30, Jazz Suns to make the playoffs. The same basketball team that was one of the four worst in the NBA to close last year. The same basketball team that was blown out in three of its first four games. I mean, Denver, LA, and San Antonio didn't look like we had a chance. Now, I believe at that time San Antonio was going to turn out to be the number one team in the West, and they did. And I believe at that time that Denver was great. They just somehow derailed their season. But that Denver team we actually played at that point of the year was pretty darn good. But nonetheless, we got smoked. And to see us come back and be in this position is one of the better season long stories I think you can be a part of. The second thing here is the value of Al Jefferson has kind of been an ongoing conversation. I'll probably write about this today. So when the post comes up, you can either check it out or I'll add some more in-depth stuff. This would be where the ideas get formulated. Uh, I mean, the question on Al, okay, he's a 2010 guy, and those are hard to come by, but then are the numbers worth anything? And they've never been with winning. And so it leads to all sorts of of legitimate questions. I mean, on one level he's 2010, on the other level he's inefficient. On one level he's 2010, on the other level he's not a very good defensive player. One level he can get a shot off at any time, except for the fact that they aren't a high enough percentage shot. Except for the fact he doesn't go to the free throw line. You can kind of nitpick everything. But there's a few things I think you've really got to look at with him and give him some credit for, and then I think the Jazz are using him better. One is that game against Dallas. There just aren't a lot of guys that can have games like that. I mean, when he drops a 20 defensive rebound night on you and 26 8 points, I think it was, there are not many guys in the league that can do that. And so, in that sense, right there, there's a pretty high value level. Tomorrow night, there's a chance he carries us to victory. I'm not sure we have, well, Devin's been that way a little bit recently. I'm not sure we have anybody else who can just carry us to a victory. The second thing on Al is that ability to get that shot off at any moment in a game is pretty enormous. And the other night, he scores on back to back possessions against Orlando and leads Orlando at that point, in their opinion, no choice but to double team. Now, I probably would not have done that, but they did because Al had scored on back to back possessions. And frankly, if you single team Al, he's getting the shot off. You're giving up that shot to Al, and he's about 50% on it, and there's a risk level there that's over 100 possessions. Maybe you're defensively better off letting Al have that shot. I'm not sure I would ever double team Al, but in the final minute and a half, 2 minutes of a game, now that risk analysis changes a little bit because you're not playing a 100 possession game, you're playing a 6 possession game. And when there's only 6 possessions and this guy can get his shot off pretty clearly every time, you might have to change what your viewpoint is on how you deal with it. And that's a pretty high level value. And that's what happened the other night. And he has become much more willing passer. He'll set a career high in assists this year. And so they did exactly that. And they double teamed. Devin Harris bypasses the shot to Gordon Hayward, who buries the three. How about this on Hayward? We talk about these young guys and new experiences. And some of the things I think we forget is big moments in the NBA are different. And the final 5 minutes of an NBA game is played very differently than the rest of the game, and you have to learn how to play that game. And so you look at Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward was 1 of 10 shooting in clutch situations. Final 5 minutes of a game, under 6 minutes. 1 of 10 from 3. He's hit his last 2. You'd say to me, well, it's not that big a deal. But remember, the final last year, Hayward only plays in 10 games, only in 10 games that were within 6 points in the final 5 minutes for the entire year last year. This year he's played in 39. Though these are new experiences. It's been very good for the free throw line in his career, 83%. He's 4 of 15 from 3 in his career. He's hit 2 in the last 2 games. And before that, he was 2 of 13 in his career. Those are big, big moments of growth happening for the Jazz right there. That 3 was a big-time play. Derek Favors, now playing the end of games, seems unfazed. We're not asking him to have the ball in his hands, but he is now played. Last year, he actually played in some final games in New Jersey, very few. Last year, he played in just 5 games for us that went down to the wire. This year, he's played in 16, and he is actually 11 of 19, probably put back dunks. He's doing his job. He's played them pretty well. So when you look at that these moments are huge for these kids and their development. Devin Harris just continues to do it, man. And this is neat to watch. And You cannot get a straight answer from anyone. What happened? Why did it click in? How can a guy average 10 points in this, 9 points in January, 10 points in February, 11 points in March, and 18 in April? February is pretty good. He shot 52% and 38% from the field. He only averaged 10 points a game, though. In April, he's on a different planet. He's hit more threes in the month of April in 10 games than I believe he hit in the first 30 of the season. The guy is just clutched up. And it's big. And it's exactly what this team needs. And then that gets back to Al Jefferson. That we had a running stat with Al Jefferson going that if Al Jefferson didn't shoot 50%, this team lost. Remember, we were talking about this a lot. Well, all of a sudden, in the last few games, Al Jefferson has not shot 50%. 10 of 22, Jazz win. 4 of 14, Jazz win. Frankly, against Memphis, he was above 500. We lost. In New Orleans, he was above 500. We lost. Houston, 6 of 14. We win. San Antonio, 5 of 12. We win. It's completely reversed. How come? Well, the thought a little bit is that what's taken place here is that the other guys are stepping up and playing better. And Al's burden on Al is less, which is probably more appropriate for what this team does. They create some more opportunities. And then if Al shoots below 50%, the other guys are making up for those possessions, and in turn the Jazz are a better team. The other thing that's worth noting on Al in his value is what his plus minus is in the month of April. In 11 games of April, Al Jefferson's plus minus is 83. The Jazz have outscored their opponents by 83 points when Al Jefferson is on the floor. Now, how much of this? That's got to be, by the way, one of the highs in the entire NBA. Josh Smith, I think, was the best. Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Danny Green, that whole group is one of the best. Al's about 15th in the NBA. The Spurs' big guys on the floor this year are all over plus 100 in the month of April. They also haven't lost. The Spurs have lost to the Jazz in the game where they didn't play anyone, and then they lost the next night to the Lakers, and they haven't lost since. It's pretty incredible. And remember, the loss to the Jazz ended a 10 or 11 game win streak. The next thing is how much does this have to do with the big lineup? And the big lineup is changing games. I'll dig into this a little bit today as well. A lot of work today out of pleasure, but because I think that there is a high level of demand. Kevin Pelton wrote a good piece on the lineup of the Jazz and how it has saved the Jazz season and had some amazing numbers. And we all believe, or at least a lot of us believe, a lot of this has to do with Favors playing, and I would generally agree with that. Against Orlando, with the big lineup on the floor, the Jazz outscored the Magic 71-37. That's plus 34. All of our other lineups were outscored by 24 points. I mean, I don't think that Tyrone Corbin turns around and starts this lineup and blows and changes it right away, but you never know. The Jazz first used this lineup in Portland in April, if my memory is because of injuries. We just were out of guys. And it's worked. And I was not a believer in it. I didn't believe Millsap could play the three offensively or defensively. And he has proven that by dealing with Rudy Gay's of the world and some of those guys. And then the second thing is Ryan Anderson is the type of stretch four, Matt Bonner type of stretch four, where I didn't think the Jazz could deal with it. Anderson was pretty good, but Favors did a pretty decent job getting out to him. He's much improved than he has been in the past. So I think he was really good in that regard. I will break down the different big lineups that we've had with Hayward on the floor And you wonder if the big lineup's opening up the shooting for Harris and Hayward at all. With the big lineup on the floor, and Hayward, according to Kevin Pelton, who wrote about this at Basketball Perspectives, the Jazz are scoring about 110 points per 100 possessions. That would be about number one in the league. Simultaneously, they're not allowing anything. They're outscoring opponents by 21 points per 100 possessions. I mean, they have not played a lot, but as of right now, the big lineups of the Jazz, if that was the only lineup they ever put on the floor, it would be some of the best lineups in the NBA. It's hard to give you, really truly the best. But so far, the Jazz best this year: Harris, Hayward, Millsap, Favors, and Jefferson has outscored opponents 114 to 78 in 50 minutes of action. Okay, that's almost a game. 114 to 78. It's a blowout. It's really incredible, but what's most incredible is the defensive numbers. If you just do a quick scan here at basketballvalue.com, the best defensive lineup, and the rating of 100 means you're giving up a point per possession. The best defensive lineup the Jazz have: Harris, Hayward, Millsap, Favors, and Jefferson by a mile. The next best defensive lineup the Jazz have is Jamal Tinsley, Hayward, Millsap, Favors, and Jefferson. The next best defensive lineup the Jazz have is Tinsley, Burks, Millsap, Favors, and Cantor. They've only played 24 minutes together. We get under 20. And the only other lineups that are worth mentioning defensively: Devin Harris, Gordon Hayward, Josh Howard, Derek Favors, Al Jefferson. There is a common thread here. Finally, Earl Watson, C.J. Miles, Josh Howard, Paul Millsap, and Ennis Cantor has been pretty good. That's a bench unit. That group cannot score, though. That group has been outscored. So you start to look at these lineups, there's a common thread, which is Favors in the game changes who the Jazz are defensively. Millsap at the 3 is changing who the Jazz are defensively. I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. For those of you who are negative Nellies and were just wondering, the worst defensive lineup is Watson, Miles, Howard, Favors, and Jefferson. So it is, Favors is on the floor there. And Tinsley, Hayward, Howard, Millsap, and Jefferson is pretty bad, but they're also so good offensively they've outdone people. And interestingly, our current starting lineup of Harris, Hayward, Carroll, Millsap, and Jefferson is our third worst defensive lineup we've had on the floor. So we're going from our third worst to our best, which is a large part of this. I think we're done. I'm at 18 minutes. It's a super extra large one with just jam-packed. Warrior pick update. So for those who don't know how this works, if the Warriors pick 1 through 7, the Warriors get the pick. If they pick 8 or higher, we get the pick. The Warriors won last night. We greatly appreciate them doing that. It means that the Warriors sit in 8th right now. If the season were to end today, the Warriors would be 8th. They then would go to the lottery. And unless they went in the top 3 of the lottery, the Jazz would get the pick. The way it stands now, though, Toronto and New Jersey each have one less loss than the Warriors, and they play on the final night of the season. So the Warriors, if they do not win another game, are guaranteed to be 7th, tied with either Toronto or New Jersey. I have not confirmed this with the league, but my memory, and then also doing some research last night, what they then will do is they will have a coin flip of whether the Warriors or whoever wins that game is 7 or 8. If the Warriors are slip to 8 and then don't win the lottery, on the coin flip, we get the pick. If the Warriors are 7 and nobody below them jumps ahead of them in the lottery to push them back to 8, we don't get the pick based on a coin flip. The other angle here is the Warriors have 2 more games. One is against New Orleans at home. The other is against San Antonio at home. San Antonio should have clinched number 1 in the West by then. and I don't know about their tiebreaker with Chicago for the best overall. And New Orleans this year on the road is 9-22, so maybe there's a chance. All right, that's 20 minutes, the longest ever to start the day. Tip off. Thanks for taking the time. I'm going to try to get some podcasts out today about the game. We'll see what happens. See ya.